Inside Story Uganda, real source of political updates.
An honor to train the next generation of young and enthusiastic journalists. The Shaka Sali School of Media Excellence. That's the proposed name. This school should be strictly in Kabale district because he was proud of his roots to a global audience. He directly inspired me to love live television political shows like The Frontline when I was 18 years old. Till this day, James Alemi, an ardent follower of the show. James Bond in Fort Portal is watching us and says, thanks for the program, Charles. It's very sad to hear the death of our own Pan-Africanist, the late Shaka. I remember those days when we were struggling to get VOA on shortwave, Yes, shortwave 2, just not to miss him. May his soul rest in eternal peace. As per NRM, to regain the lost regions, it only requires to give the community services, not to apply the Kawempe North methods. James Bond in Fort Portal. Chris Tushabe, the old man Chris Tushabe, is watching us from Kasenda, and he says, Fungaro says that West Nile is marginalized without ministers, etc. That's why they will vote for NRM in 2026 so that they can get ministers.
No.
That's from an elder called Chris Tushabe.
From where? Tushabe is writing from where? He's from where? Writing from where?
He's writing from Kasenda in Kabarole district.
Kabarole district.
Yes. Then there is a photo here sent by Jane Kojo Kano, who says the above caption refers, update Honorable Fungaro that there is no longer opposition in Acholi region. Yes, this is of...
who told you? Who is that?
This is the welcoming of a lot of FDC members into the NRM. I see some of the former FDC members here.
Who are those ones?
I see Alioni, I see...
Alioni?
Is it Alioni? Yes, I think.
There's no Alioni in Acholi.
Is this Akol?
Akol
It is
Anthony.
Akol. Yes, Akol Anthony.
Yes.
I see
Mapenduzi.
Mapenduzi and others. These are former FDC people who are now in the NRM fold. And he says,
There's no opposition
there's no longer
Okay,
opposition in the north. Just a moment, let me first take some messages. And then I need to bring in Charles Rwomushana.
You are now the moderator.
Someone's, Ken Mutenyo says, it's misleading today to rely on the figures the EC chooses to declare as outcome to measure the strength of parties. For some unexplained reasons, a narrative of two opposing political sides in every election seems a deliberate move. After declaring the outcome from 15 polling stations had been thrown out, the latest gazette from EC has increased votes of some candidates. Unfortunately, we cannot talk of bases using the EC numbers. It's my opinion that we will never know the correct number of votes candidates get. That's Ken Mutenyo. Kakoza Samuel in Luwero says, whoever got shocked with NRM loss is unserious, especially in Kampala where it has been performing poorly. They deceived the president that Nambi had support, yet in reality, they ferried people to paint a picture of too much support to get money for campaigns. It's believed some people pocketed millions that were supposed to canvass for votes. It's a big shame to our mobilization team who got a campaign team from Wakiso. Simon Biamkama is watching us and says, OO is absolutely spot on this evening. The conversation is really insightful and heading in the right direction. It seems to me that the NRM chairman was misled by opportunistic individuals who had personal interests and were looking to benefit greatly from the by-election. These people might have taken advantage of the chairman's position for their own gain. Peter Kivazo is watching us and says, rest well, Comrade Shaka. You, Charles, and I enjoyed his generous hospitality in Washington, D.C. Yes, we did. Wow, I'm happy my uncle finally speaks his mind. It gives me hope. Kampala from 70, not for NRM. Bagwa Matthias in Mukono. Let me see. I think that's what I'll take for now. Caps, before I come back to you, let me go to Charles Rwomushana.
Okay.
As we move closer towards 2026, if you're a member of the NRM, all the preparation, all the attention now is being paid to the party primaries because they hold adult suffrage party primaries. So the focus is on that, and that should be happening within the next few months. if you're looking at the general election, the Electoral Commission roadmap is out and has set deadlines for when people should be resigning, when nominations will happen. But looking at the general picture in the country today, how do you see the play in a multi-party setting in terms of who has what strength where?
You know, God is great, God is merciful. The National Resistance Army does not prioritize the survival of what you call a party. It prioritizes the survival of the state.
What is the National Resistance Army? The last time I checked, that had ended somewhere in early 2000.
The NRA is there, the original. You should have heard Mr. Museveni's speeches. He normally calls the media. So it prioritizes the survival of the state. And as long as the state survives, they are there. Now, if you look at, because the topic is about the regions, formation of regional blocks. So let me not fall into the trap of Fonopondo. They tell him to dive into a swimming pool and he jumps there and he begins with the legs or the stomach. When, after the overthrow of Dr. Apollo Milton Obote, the coming in of Idi Amin and the war against Idi Amin, President Nyerere and the TPDF allowed Mr. Museveni and Foronasa to build in the western axis. Certainly because Mr. Museveni would greet in Runyankore, Mureireje, Murubuhoro. And interestingly, the actors of UPC were pushed to advance through Uganda, where you had the Paul Mwanga and the others. The ground that was very hostile to Obote is the ground where Obote was allowed to build. And Museveni took the western axis. But when Obote was coming back to rebuild UPC, it was done in Bushenyi. So you need to go and find out why in Ankole and why in Bushenyi. Because the resistance against and this would explain to you why you had the anti-sectarian law. You remember? The anti-sectarian law is not to say Fongaloho is your tribe?
You don't even
know. No. But if I said Fonopondo, you are a Mujapadora, that's not sectarianism. If I say the Honorable Kena is a Langi, that's okay. But you can't say Mr. Museveni is a Mchiga from Chiruhura. The moment you say he's a Mchiga from Chiruhura, that's sectarianism. More especially if you now go into Ankole and then you go into Bahima Beiru, it becomes a little bit. So the Beiru of, he had problems with the Beiru of Ankole, mainly Igara. Where you now have Manyamshega, Kayendo Tafire, that took on the political wing of the NRA. So the destruction of UPs, the establishment of UP, the reincarnation of UPs, the reorganization of UPC in Western Uganda, one had the base area of the Protestant church. So if you are saying Honorable Kena is going to bring back UPC, does he still have the base of the Protestant church? He doesn't. The Protestant church has been taken over by the NRA, and it's the NRA that gives vehicles. If Akena was try, at least you would give him them borders. I doubt you'd be able to give them those four-wheel drive cars. UPC was not destroyed politically. UPC was destroyed through military means. So it can again become national if it's able to build a military base. And the circumstances are extremely very hostile, at least in the short run. Now, has the NRA collapsed in Uganda? So what was the base area of the NRA in Uganda? The base area of the NRA in Uganda, the areas of Chiboga, the areas of Nakaseke. Why? Their base area was not in the Baganda. It was in Uganda, yes, but not in the Baganda. And if you go and check in the last elections, the opposition against Museveni got 1.9 million votes, and Museveni got above 1 million votes in Uganda. Where he got 36%, he still got 1 million votes. The other guy did not even get 2 million votes to say that he got Museveni. So that means Museveni retained his base area. The base area was not largely impacted. It was not adversely impacted. He still got his 1 million votes in the Chibuga areas where there are cattle keepers and where they greet Oreireje, Buhoro, etc. Now,
what was his performance in Kampala, around the Kampala area, in terms of in numbers?
Of course, you see, you need Kampala, you need Wakiso, you need Ankole. In terms of populations, if you have that, then you are good to go. So he has Bushenyi, he has Ankole. The entire opposition cannot take away even 10% as we speak of Ankole. Why? Because they don't have terminals. Because you see, to have a constituency, you also have to have a character. You must build those characters and sellable characters, sellable candidates, which I think he's not been able. Now in Lango, UPC is in Lango because you heard what Mr. Museveni said. I don't know if you remember Mr. Kena when he said we have used the Ngoni Horn formation. So UPC was not pushed into Lango politically. It was pushed into Lango through military means. So it's still military means. It's not about politics. Now, BSJ comes in, and therefore FDC, because they were seen as a liberation organization. They branded themselves as a liberation organization against the NRA state. That was the lie. And there was belief that because BSJ was a Kano, actually it's what he was saying. He was formerly a Kano, therefore a soldier would take on Mr. Museveni.
Was that a belief or a matter of fact?
No, where? Fact and where?
Was it a Kano?
No, I mean to say that because he was a Kano, therefore he would challenge the NRA. Actually, he used to tell us in Rukunjiri that 90% of the army was behind the BSJ. And all Mr. Museveni needed to do was to put him on handcuffs, parade him around Rizira town, the Rizira in town, and take him to prison. And see whether there was an army to rescue him. That's the only thing Mr. Museveni needed to do. He did it successfully, and the base general started applying for bail. So if you have 90% of the army, and they can't rescue you from... so that line collapsed. And then, of course, Mr. Museveni proliferated Kyagulanyi. Why? You see, we had a strategy that you don't arrest Cecily Ogwara. You don't beat Cecily Ogwara.
What do you mean when you say we had a strategy? You and who?
You don't know where I worked there. Now you want me to go into those really? There was a strategy of the NRA that you don't beat Cecily Ogwara, you don't arrest Cecily Ogwara. Because when you do, the other reverse psychology, you make him popular. So if Akena now was to go to Bushenyi, was to go to Kasese, they will not deploy the army. Because you know when you deploy the army, you make him, you brand him. So they will do that for Kyagulanyi, and they did it for Kyagulanyi to destroy BSJ. Now BSJ is no more. You now need to go and find out why is it that when the BSJ was exiting FDC, he had to destroy FDC. He could have gone for his PPF, but without necessarily destroying FDC. And what he went for, they just arrested him within 2 months. It's gone. What he was trying to, that seed of his he was trying to plant, it collapsed just merely by arrest. Then how about UPC that faced 5 years of brutal guerrilla warfare, where terminals of UPC were butchered in Rwero. They were killed in Rwero. And so they therefore cannot recover unless they organize through military means. The NRA has a national character because it has the state. Yes, you see, at a district level, it builds around the RDC and the DISO. And at the sub-county level, it builds around the GISO, the Gombera Internal, yes, the Gombera Internal Security Officer. So where you have got organized communities, then they face some bit of resistance. Now we also talked about regional blocks. Are you talking about regions in terms of geography, or you are talking about tribes?
You can pick it from where you want.
Or you are shy to talk about
the
it.
interpretation is yours.
No, I mean, it's a topic.
Where you want to frame your analysis from is yours.
A region is a region.
Yes, a region is a
No,
region.
it's a topic. So if you are talking about Lango, are you talking about Lango, the geography, or you are talking about Lango, the Langi?
What is your understanding of it?
So if it is because you need to check where you have regions and you have tribes, how Mr. Museveni has proliferated cultural institutions. The cultural institutions. So you have Kasese, his contradictions, his problems, his reconciliation, his love and hate with the Obsinga, and then you have your Toro, you have the kingdom there, the cultural institution, but then you also have Chisoke speaking for police. So there is some face of Uganda police there.
So you're referring to
the spokesperson of police, Russo, spokesperson of police. Rusoke. Then you have the commander land forces of the army. He has to be visible. So you now have the Batoro see themselves as shareholders in the army, and then you have IGP Bunyoro. The prime minister is in Bunyoro. That's how he is maneuvering, manipulating the politics of deception with the tribes. You have the speaker, and then it's like the Bateso now are in, they are included. The inclusion is through the elevation of individuals, not the elevation of the people as a whole into...
Thank you. I'll come back to you in a moment. Tom Mbojana is an elder.
There are issues which you read there need to be answered
yes,
before you read the others.
There are more for you. It took more than 10 years to hold elections under the so-called multi-party system. NRM all along had been using those LCs as their grassroots structures. Tom Mbojana. Laban is watching us from Kitagata. Laban Muhawe says, my friend Fungaro, please mobilize for individual merit so that we remove divisions in Uganda politically.
Is that the Laban of police?
Yes,
the
former
Laban of
police,
police?
yes. Laban Muhawe in Kitagata. Formally.
I was with him in Mweya.
Yes, he's been retired for some time. Job Richard Matua, Assistant RCC Arua City. NRM lost Buganda and we must objectively accept that. We can reclaim Buganda, but starting with rural Buganda. This calls for going to the ground to understand the issues. I thank President Museveni for going to Kivoga over land issues, which is a core factor in NRM loss in Buganda. Job Matua. Jeff Bidandi is watching us and says, NRM is a mass party. Gets open to new members. NRM is very competitive in primaries due to the weight attached to its ticket. NRM has to clean the primaries elections because they sharply divide the party support. Then NRM has to move closer to the young population drifting to opposition. NRM has to rebrand as a party to accommodate all warring factions within the party and accommodate dissenting voices. Jeff Bidandi. Scholar Itanga says, I am happy to see Charles Rwomushana discussing in English. Thanks for the program.
But you can it is very heavy English.
Talibita Moses says, please let Akena paint a picture for us who never saw UPC and its works. What is their plan for being an everywhere political party? What does its UPC offer now that makes it measure up to the current times or problems? I'll hand it back to you, Fungaro and...
First of all, I would like to thank the people of Buganda for waking up to the reality that President Museveni's government deceived them and misused their support, which they gave the NRA, NRM during the Busu War. When we, people from the north, first rose up and told the Ugandans that Museveni is not a good leader, his government was sectarian, tribalistic, and undemocratic, we voted for a new person in the names of Dr. Paul Kawanga Semgerere, as you stated, I think himself. And then in 1996, under the 1995 Constitution, the first voting, majority of the people of the North voted for Dr. Paul Kawanga Semgerere, followed by Dr. Besije, in 2001. But in those votings, in Buganda here, people voted for NRM, quote unquote. In the subsequent elections, Museveni would come up to the north and tell people that you people, even if you refuse to vote for me, I have my voters in Buganda and in Western Uganda. You are very few, your population is small. You go ahead, vote against me, I have my Buganda. So today, the region of Buganda is clearly against Museveni. So Buganda, thank you very much. Keep it up. Again, Busoga is moving in that same trend. So we would like to say, let Buganda keep it there. For us in northern Uganda, we are now.
And I will put back. I will put back the question to you.
Yes.
What role are you playing as a political party?
I am going
to
there.
Facilitate that movement.
I'm going to that point here. Now, for us, what we are going to the north is to tell the people of the north that you see, President Museveni ran here and discouraged you from voting against him on the assumption that Buganda was going to vote for him, even if you vote against him. Now that you have seen, Buganda has never voted for Museveni, and Buganda is not going to vote again for Museveni again. Do you still want to vote for Museveni? Should you be, you northerners, both in the civil population and the army, should you be the one to defend Museveni against the threat from Buganda when Museveni made you to suffer all these years? So this time around, be assured, Buganda is not going to vote for Museveni. So let's go back to the election of 1996, 2001, 2006, where we vote massively against Museveni, just in the north alone. So Buganda should take care of the issues of Museveni in Buganda, the way they've done already in 2021. This is the regional policy you're talking about.
Yes.
We are giving Buganda the direction it has taken. We say, okay, Buganda, go ahead. Then Busoga is going in the same direction. Lango there, UPC, take charge there. In Iteso, FDC will be there. In Acholi, FDC will be there. Now let me come to Acholi. This thing of defection of people should not deceive you people. Defections in Acholi do not affect the voting. Acholi people are political conscious people, even to the smallest person in the village. Secondly, there were people who defected before. Those who defect are always immediately replaced by people from the opposition. Let me give you examples. Honorable Michael Ochula, the MP for Clark, the predecessor of Honorable Cole, before Clark was divided to north and south, was FDC. He defected and he was replaced in both constituencies by FDC people. Honorable Achiro Konsi, Achiro defected from FDC to NRM. He was replaced by Lucy, Honorable Lucy, the current MP, as FDC. You go to Kitigum, Honorable Beatrice Anywar, defected to NRM and he was replaced by Honorable Onekalit. So those people who have just defected to NRM, first of all, have not gone with the population of the FDC. I'm the one in charge of Northern Uganda. I'm from there. There are already candidates, and good candidates lined up to replace those people from the side of the FDC. You wait and see what is going to come from Amuru. Amuru people are political conscious people, actually generally. And President Museveni has gone to the north to brainwash the minds of the people of the north and Teso using the same formula that you are already eating. Because the Chief Justice is from the north, the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Norbert Mao, is from the you are now here, you are included. But I am happy to know that the ordinary Acholi in the constituencies, in the villages, don't celebrate these appointments of their sons in the big positions. They don't honor these crossings. That's why people who cross from Acholi to go to NRM are replaced by opposition people immediately. So rest assured, the opposition is still strong in Acholi. Secondly, the issue of the army. One thing we must admit is this. We have not sufficiently addressed the issue of the use of the army in politics. Actually, I can say that we have never had, NRM has never had any equal competitor in elections. This thing is not elections. It's military operations. If it's supposed to be a real operation like this, let each opposition party have its own army, like the one of NRM. And then we see. Now, listen to this. This voting you talk about in Western Uganda, that Western Uganda votes for NRM from 7 is a lie. In my post-2021 election assessment, performance assessment, I moved in the whole country with my party president, the Secretary General. I was in Western Uganda for 8 days. I discovered something which I never knew before. People in Kazo, Kiruhura, Rwampara, Mbarara, even including Busenyi, told us, Fungaro, for you people, you are better in northern Uganda. You vote. At least you vote. For us in western Uganda, we don't vote. You report to the polling station, they beat you up, beginning from the primary election, people die. It is the ruling family, the generals, who decide who first of all become a candidate. Then how many votes you get. You reach a polling station by 11 in the morning, they tell you, don't go there, we are finished, the voting is over. You have not voted. They tell you the voting is over. And then wait, when they count, they say, Museveni got 90%. And then this may be 99% of the people turned for the voting. Even you never voted. So this thing of Western Uganda is just forgery. There are people who are down.
We'll interrogate that in a moment.
There are people in Western Uganda who don't have the opportunity like the people of Obongi. For someone to speak for their grievances.
Rwomushana is from Western Uganda.
These are liars. These are the same liars, planners, propagandists of Museveni.
Let me come to James Akena.
Against the people of Western Uganda, and then you declare results.
Let's come back.
Let's
come to James Akena.
So for me, my brothers in Ankole and sisters, I have heard from you. I know you. I have told the people of Northern Uganda that don't blame all the people of Western Uganda. There are people who are downtrodden down there. Let's go there, unite with them and liberate them.
Let's pick it up with Akena. There were some comments that came to you that I would like you to respond to, but also to the broader question. What kind of, is there a possibility going into the next election that political parties will find a common platform? You said at parliamentary level the discussion is different, at presidential level the discussion is different. But I've also heard that you intend to run for president, do you?
Yes.
And so at what level will you hold the negotiations? What are you putting on the table?
You see, presidential Ugandan constitution provides a 50+1. So the winner must have 50% of the votes plus one extra vote. Now, with that as the formula, if at the end of the election nobody in opposition comes close to 50%, the result will be the same. But if you get a situation whereby the votes, for example, somebody has 10%, somebody has 30-something%, and then it aggregates to more than 50, the second round will be determined by the top two candidates. So it is not a danger in itself that dividing the vote will cause an immediate negative effect. So for presidential, I do not see the problem because of that mathematical formula. But when it comes to parliamentary, anyone is first past the post. That is where I think a lot more caution needs to be done, that we should not be dividing our votes carelessly around that issue. On the presidential, it will aggregate to the same question. It will come back down to the same thing. If we are in a situation whereby we don't have a 50+1, then we'll go for a second round, and that automatically means there'll be some level of interaction or cutting across the board. Now, before I leave this, there's something which Rwomushana raised, talking about the sectarian issue. One issue left out is Anyanya. Who's an Anyanya?
People, we used to think they had very big ears.
Now, it was even a song, but it targeted a certain section of the society. So, those are things which we also need to interrogate as a country. If you say that in the Western there are certain phrases or people you cannot mention, you'll be sectarian, I also think Anyanya should be in the same category. Because Anyanya targeted negatively
people of the North.
People of the North.
Yes.
People of a certain ethnicity. And this is a heritage which we have to deal with as a country. So that question needs to be addressed. Then on the to my brother Fungaro, for us, we're not only on grievances, we must also capture the aspirations of the people. And that is where you can actually retain the membership. Grievances can bring people together on a particular issue, but how to move forward, we need to really be able to capture the aspirations and the hopes of the people of Uganda. And I think that's what we need to share as political parties, a clear vision of where we should be going, the challenges which people face. You find people, in many cases, you would think that the only danger we face is militarily. Because a lot of investment goes to the military, a lot of expectation is in the military, but then you have these forces which are being created like the JAT, which is supposed to deal with the hardest of the terrorists who are coming against Uganda, are now being used against an election. So there we're missing the point. We've invested heavily on the military side to deal with the military problem, but we apply it to politics.
Let me go back to political party organization. Every election, your party, the UPC, the Democratic Party, even the Forum for Democratic Change, National Unity Platform, and the other general parties in the opposition, they say the argument has been, are you able to field candidates throughout the country? Number two, are you able to have agents, your agents protecting your vote at every polling station across the country? If you're not able, then you're going to rely on the collective effort, where one political party said the National Unity Platform has demonstrated strength in Buganda sub-region. You say, let them take care of matters there. UPC has demonstrated a base in Lango sub-region, let them be there. How do you see that playing out going into the next election? Because you'll scatter your efforts all over the country and you cannot consolidate. And then at the end of the day, you're not able to hold you're not able to push the election to a rerun.
You see, the truth is the system which has been put in place is not workable. And I'll give you in the sense in this, that we have failed to hold elections for LC1. It has been postponed on, I think, 3 occasions. Yes, it also has affected the Women Council elections. Now, we have NRM created this structure where it was using the state to fill this structure, where I disagree with Rwomushana, but this was the government funds were used to create this structure. That was the NRM structure. For 20 years, where parties could not. Now, if as a government we are failing to conduct these elections, and yet as a party I'm supposed to mirror, I'm supposed to have a structure which in every village mirroring the national structure, and we're failing to run it. In other words, what was created was impossible for the parties to be able to fulfill, and that was the purpose for it. At the time when it was created, NRM was fused completely with the state. It is still fused, but in that particular instance, it was fused and the funding was there. That was how it was able to run. Now, we've come to this situation whereby we have had situations where parties cannot fully function, including NRM, and that is how we've been able to make some grounds in the IPOD discussions on trying to get parties to be functional and to be able to function even between elections. Because a lot of the situations we get is also, and this affects NRM also, that there's a period where they disappear. Even offices get closed. Then when it comes this 1 year to election, we spring back to life, go through these processes, and then after election disappear. Where political parties should be active throughout. But part of it is that what has been created is a system which was designed to make it impossible for parties, but now NRM has found themselves also equally in that same situation, whereby there's a slight gap.
Political parties,
there's a slight gap between the NRM and the state today.
You're receiving some subvention from the government as political parties under the Political Parties and Organizations Act.
Yes.
And that is supposed to keep you functional throughout the 5-year cycle, not just to emerge at election time and then disappear.
Now, that is some of the discussions which we had under IPOD on the question of the funding and where the funding should go and how it should be able to maintain the parties, also be able to have the meetings, because our policy platforms come from our organizations. National Council, the Delegates Conference is what puts us forward. Now, within this period, most parties struggle to hold those. And we go through that whole difficulty, and that is where we made some ground within IPOD, but it was never concluded.